Hi again, and welcome to another episode of Cook the Book. This is our episode number 20. This is Valerie and I'm Tina, and we're here once a month to talk a little bit about a newer fiction book and take inspiration from that to come up with a great recipe that we'll make for you today. So our book for today is a new one. It's called Summer Reading by Jenn McKinlay. And we're in the middle of the summer reading program currently, so we thought what a fun title to do during the summer, especially in the midst of the summer reading program. This book is unique in a lot of ways. The author has many people in her family who are dyslexic, and she really wanted to write an adult book that really would encourage those who maybe struggle with some reading or are dyslexic to have an easier time reading the book. So she did a lot of research. She used dyslexic-friendly font. She uses bolding instead of italics, and she did not use any hyphenated words. She also wanted to write the book with a twist, with a female lead who was really not a bookish person, and a hero who is a book-loving person. So they first accidentally meet Samantha and Bennett, the two main characters, taking a ferry to the island of Martha's Vineyard. She accidentally knocks his book in the water, so what a way to meet someone. Samantha is coming to the island for to visit her family's tiny cottage. She is a chef whose career is really not going that great. She's coming with her half-brother who just happens to be coming to Martha's Vineyard to be in a robotics competition at the local library. So, you know, who's working at the local library? Of course, Bennett, who's the interim library director. And he came to the island and accepted the job as interim library director that summer because he really wanted to do some research to possibly find his father, who he's never met. So, and Samantha is hoping to write a cookbook. She has a Portuguese heritage and would like to put many of her grandfather's recipes into a cookbook. So she's hoping to do that while she's at Martha's Vineyard. So lots of good things happening in this book. And again, what a nice thing that we do have some juvenile books that are written like in dyslexic font. But this is the first one I'm aware of. There may be others out there that really caters to adults who may have dyslexia or some struggles with reading. So there's a lot of food talked about in the book, lots and lots and lots of food. But they also talk a lot about the Great British Baking Show, which is very popular. And we have a book here at the library, and it is called Bake, Make, and Learn to Cook. And it's by one of the past British Baking Show winners, David Atherton. And Valerie has picked out a recipe that we're going to make for you today.
All right. The recipe in this book, I actually really like this recipe. It's called Victorian Sandwich buns. One of the things I liked about this recipe is that it was easy. I feel like this would be a great recipe, especially over summer when the kids are out of school. They can easily help with this. And then it's a really fun treat when it's done. So, all right, so we'll get started. So the first thing that we need is 1/2 cup of unsalted butter. And then we are going to add our sugar to it, and we need a 2/3 cup of granulated sugar. So once that's together, then we're gonna just mix it up until it's pale and light and creamy. And I feel like through this recipe, and I have a hand mixer, I feel like you could use your stand mixer if you have that. But in this also, they show just the use of a spoon. So if you didn't have a mixer, it looks like you could just use a spoon as well. So mix this up. But yeah, it seems like just a fun little treat to do if you don't have a lot of time to do something. But, and as you'll see later, there's jam in the center, so I feel like it would make even like a good breakfast treat.
Yes, and this recipe makes about 12.
Yes. Yeah.
I would go with the jam in them. That would make a really nice breakfast item.
It really would.
Or brunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so this creamed up here. And usually to get it to where you need it to be, I would say maybe a couple minutes. And if you're stirring it with a spoon,
A bit longer.
I don't know, yeah, a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And I feel like almost like this recipe would be one that's, I don't want to say foolproof, but I would think like if it's not perfect, it's not going to ruin it.
That's good to know.
Alright, starting to get there. Alright, so it kind of looks like that. Scrape down the sides a little bit. Alright. Then I always wipe my spatula off on my beaters.
That's smart.
Alright, and then the next thing that we're going to do, we have 3 eggs in this recipe. So I just put them in one dish. I think it makes it a little easier to do this. So we're just going to add 1 egg. And then we're going to mix that in.
This kind of makes me want to watch at least one episode of the Great British Baking Show. I know it's been popular for a long time. I just have not seen it.
And those shows are always just fun to watch anyway. And I know, as we've discussed before, some of the recipes they have on these shows just look amazing.
Yes, yes. And I'm always amazed how quickly they can make these beautiful looking things.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
I feel like even if, at least on the shows that I've seen, not the Great British Baking Show, but other baking shows, like, how can you make something so beautiful in like an hour and a half?
It would take me all day for some of these things. I'm like, I don't know about that. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do, we have 1 1/3 cup flour. We're going to take half of that and add it after we get our first egg blended in. So I feel like with this recipe too, another really great thing is all of this is stuff that most people would just have at home.
Yes, typical items. And probably even the flavor of the jam, you could use whatever you
had.
or whatever your favorite was.
Yeah, it calls for raspberry, but yeah, I would think anything.
Yeah.
All right, so you're just gonna mix that up. All right, and then we're gonna add another egg. Oops.
And it is nice too, because I see they have powdered sugar on them at the end, so they're not overly sweet, you know, for those who don't want the sweetness of frosting and other things, you know, this.
And my daughter is a big one who does not like frosting, so this is kind of a great recipe for her.
Yeah.
Because they're not overly sweet, and like you said, just with that, it's perfect. Alright, so then we're going to add the rest of our flour here. And there's also in this recipe 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I had already added that to my flour, but it calls for it at this step as well. So if you hadn't already added it to your flour, it would go in right now. But one thing this recipe does not call for, and it's not a typo, is there's no salt in this recipe. The butter you're using is unsalted. So I know many recipes have some salt in it to some degree. And I was curious about that at first because I had not made these, but this is featured in several British cookbooks. And the recipes that I looked at, none of them had salt.
No
so
salt
it must
in
be
it?
typical of this
Right.
recipe.
Huh.
All right, then we're going to add our last egg.
And I wonder if that, with them being called Victoria's Sandwich Buns, if it's an old-timey recipe.
I'm wondering that too, like a traditional
Yes.
type thing. Yeah. So, and there are 2 teaspoons of vanilla, which you're going to add at this stage also. Okay, vanilla always smells so good.
It really does, always.
All right, and I'm going to mix this up. And by this point, it's kind of a really thick batter.
Easy to mix though.
It really is. Yeah, that's why I said I think that this is just a great recipe to do with kids, even younger ones. They could easily dump in the ingredients and you could mix it, or if you choose to do it with a spoon, they could even mix it up.
Yeah.
So, this is what I always do. I always get my beaters off so I don't have to scrape them.
Yeah.
Might not be the perfect way to do it, but it's easy for me to do. All right. So I just mix it up and make sure I got everything from the bottom there. All right. So once our batter is mixed, all right, what we're gonna do is it says to add 1 tablespoon. This does make 12 little sandwich buns, but and it says to place 1 tablespoon in the bottom. This is a 2 tablespoon scoop, and I found with those I ended up doing 2 tablespoons on the bottom, 2 tablespoons over the
Oh,
jam.
and they're nice and normal size. They don't overflow or anything. So yeah.
But I feel like to spread, because I tried it originally with 1, and for me personally, like it didn't work as well to spread the 1 tablespoon on the bottom of the cup. I don't know if there might be different size muffin pans. Maybe they were using a different one that it would work better in. So definitely not saying the recipe is wrong. That's not what I'm going. I'm saying for me, this worked better with what I have here.
Right.
And this is a standard size muffin pan.
Okay.
All right. So once you get those, oops, stay where you are there. All right. So then I just took my spatula and kind of smoothed out the dough in the bottom of the cup.
Just so you can put the jam on top so it doesn't leak all down in.
Yeah. Because if you put it in and it looks like that, it's going to go everywhere. So, and they don't really say on here necessarily to do that. They just said put a tablespoon in the bottom. So, but I felt like if I didn't kind of smooth it out,
yes, for sure.
Yeah, it would kind of be everywhere. So these will smooth that here.
I feel like this almost could be used, of course your baking time would be different, almost in like a loaf pan too. You know, maybe I wonder if you could turn it into like more of a loaf.
Well, yeah, one of, another of the recipes I saw that wasn't for the little individual cupcake tin, it was in a round cake pan type thing. So,
okay.
And maybe that's more the traditional way. I'm not really sure. Since this is more of a kids cookbook, I was wondering if that made it just easier for the kids.
Yes, and more appealing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I just use a little spatula to help me get the jam out of there.
And will we be leaving it like in one blob like that, or we spread?
Yeah. It just says to let's see, add half a teaspoonful of jam, then put another spoonful of batter over the top. So,
and probably as it heats up, maybe it kind of goes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oops. And you said you are using the raspberry?
Yes, I am using raspberry in this. And I used and I think it does say jam. It's better if you probably use a jam with this because it's a softer spread than like a jelly. Yeah. But I suppose if all you have is jelly.
Yeah, it would still taste good, I imagine. Yeah. Might not look as good, but it might taste yummy.
So, all right. Oh, I've got jam all over here. Yep, so then it's just a little blob of jam in there. And I just put that on top. And you could either use this or I've used my spatula as well to just kind of like scooch it around a little bit. Yeah. So. Oops. But definitely when I did our samples, see, I got better all over me. I found that it came out perfectly with 2 tablespoons on the bottom and then 2 tablespoons, like batter wise.
Yes.
So that was really helpful.
And the size of the finished ones are so nice.
They really are. And then they kind of look pretty too, because they kind of
for sure
puff up and definitely just kind of a fun little treat.
Oh yeah.
All right, so then that's what they look like. And they're all ready to go in the oven.
Nice.
And then you'll just set your oven to 350. So preheat that while you're stirring this up. And then 20 minutes, and I didn't test in the center with a toothpick. I just kind of put it in from the side to see if they were done.
Nice, nice. And then just let them cool and sprinkle them with some powdered
Once
sugar.
they're cool.
Very nice.
So-
Very nice. Well, thank you for joining us for another issue or another episode of Cook the Book. Remember, we have great cookbooks, great fiction books, great all kinds of things. Not just books, many other things also here at the library. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.